All right, so here we are. The latest update for Tom Clancy's The Division just came through. This is their first major update in which they add what we'll call I guess, significant amount of content. This is one of the planned several updates coming forward in the rest of the year, in which they'll be periodically adding more and more stuff to the game, kind of fleshing it out, which I use that word very precisely because this game still feels pretty skeletal, as if it could use more flesh to make it a fully living, breathing thing that's actually good and probably worth playing or something. All right, so let's talk about this. Update 1.1 Incursions came out today. They added 6 major things. They added the Falcon Lost Incursion, the addition of gear score, gear sets, the ability to trade, kind of, assignments, which are just more daily missions, and then Dark Zone supply drops. Now, prior to today, I actually took about a 2-week break from the game. You'll have noticed that I haven't put up any videos, and that's because there was really not much else for me to do. I'd gotten some of the best gear, all item level 31, which was the cream of the crop at the time. That has since been bumped up. And then it was just more about grinding, crafting materials to get some better rolls, which I had already had some pretty good rolls. So I just said, screw it, I'm fine with how it is. Took a 2-week break, and now I'm back here today. Well, after spending the afternoon playing, checking out the new Incursion, looking at some of like the way the assignments work, getting an idea of how the trading works and all that stuff, game still feels pretty bare bones to me, and I think I'll be putting it down until later in the year. I feel like we've come across another Destiny situation in which the game launches with a decent framework. Division is not a bad game at its base. It's offering a sort of interesting and a unique experience, or at least a kind of a fresh experience, one that we're not seeing a lot of. You don't see too many third-person shooter loot-based games in a open, persistent world. There's not a lot of those out on the market, and there's definitely room for more of those. So at its base, at its core, the Division's got some pretty cool ideas, but there's just not a lot to it, and it needs more of this fleshing out. This update is a step in that direction, but after spending the afternoon running through the Incursion several times, albeit just the hard mode, we still have the challenge mode version, which from everything that I've heard and seen is just a more difficult version of this. It's not changing up drastically or anything along those lines, and it's actually kind of, I'm not impressed, really. I'm gonna be honest with you. They finally added mechanics. Okay, there is the mechanic of, okay, so first of all, what is it? Well, the Incursion is basically a single room. It's a fairly large room, but it's a single room in which you have to take out 15 waves of enemies. There's different types of enemies. There are these flying shock drones, which can be annoying, admittedly, but it's just waves of basic enemies. You've got your shotgunners, your snipers, your LMG dudes, all the guys that you're used to playing, with the addition of these sentries, which will fly around and shock you or whatever. Then there's also this armored vehicle way in the back, but you just stay away from that for most of the time. There's no reason to go close to it. It's got these 2 sentry turrets on either side that help protect it, because apparently it's not capable of protecting itself, and every few waves, you'll get this little bomb that'll drop off an enemy. They literally walk towards you with your means of destroying the armored vehicle. You'll kill the enemy, you'll pick up the bomb, and then you'll have the ability to interact with these panels on the wall to disable the turrets to put the bomb on the armored vehicle. So that is the mechanic. Beyond the simple act of shooting enemies, that is the mechanic that they added. And we've talked about this before, how most of the PvE in this game has been very straightforward. You shoot the enemy until it's dead without any interesting mechanics to mix things up. Well, they've had their chance, they had their shot, and this is what they presented us with. And I gotta say, it's probably about as underwhelming as it could be. I mean, it's this one thing that you do every few waves, and it's not even like, it doesn't even require multiple people. You can have several people interact with both panels and try to trigger them at the same time, but it wasn't even required. Maybe that, I'm assuming that changed on challenge mode. So let's, for all intents and purposes, say that on challenge mode, you have to have people time shutting off the towers on either side. That's still pretty basic. That's still pretty straightforward. But anyways, talking from my experience, I'm not going to talk about things that I haven't seen yet. Talking from my experience, it was a very underwhelming mechanic. It is not what I was hoping for. I was hoping for something a little more in-depth, maybe that required the entire team to do something interesting. You know, there's also the fact that if your whole team dies, you have to restart from the beginning, so I guess that adds an element of challenge to it too. But what I'm sitting here right now and looking at, I can imagine being pretty much bored and done with it again in a week. Now, we do have to account for my playtime. I could play this game quite a bit, and that's going to accelerate how quickly I burn through this content. But that's just the nature of my job and what I do here, and the fact that I want to present you guys with up-to-date, pertinent, and relevant information that requires me to be on top and be playing these games a lot. It's just it's a little bit of a disappointment, because I was really hoping, I really was thinking that with these incursions, they were going to show us like, hey man, we've got the chops. We can do this. We can make some interesting and engaging PvE. Now, I'm going to go through tomorrow. Today, I just got some gear pieces, which I guess I should tell you. Gear sets drop from these incursions. You'll also get gear sets from blueprints in your base of operations, in the Dark Zone, and in the Dark Zone supply drops, which are basically these drops that'll come down in the Dark Zone and people will fight for. So this is basically going to be a hotspot where you expect a lot of PvP to happen, because only you're going to get a person running up to there, and whoever goes in and opens a chest, they're the ones who are going to be grabbing the loot. So I can envision a lot of groups coming up against each other and fighting each other for these. That's actually going to be cool. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be a lot of fun. But on the PvE side of stuff, these incursions are a bit of a disappointment. This is not sort of the raid style content that I was hoping for, and maybe, hopefully, in some of their future updates, that's something that we'll see. But as it stands right now, the Division continues to be pretty skeletal, pretty bare bones, and once more, it feels like another one of those Destiny situations. Although I should say, to be frank with you, I put in a lot more time with Destiny and got a lot more enjoyment out of it before I decided that it was getting repetitive to put it down. Because of course that's going to happen with every game. You'll eventually reach a point where like, all right, that's it, I've had enough. And how quickly someone reaches that point depends on how much time they put in, how quickly. And for me, that happened to be a couple of weeks with the Division. For Destiny, I played that for a couple of months at a steady clip, similar to the Division in terms of how much I was playing it daily or weekly. But I got a lot more out of that, and I played it for a lot longer before I said, all right, things are starting to get old, so let's put it down. And then maybe a year from now, it'll be great. And you know what? Destiny did it. Destiny came back. Some of their updates were better than others, but after about a year, it got to the point where this is a game that I would say I suggest picking it up. I suggest buying it right now. It's a fantastic product. And the hope right now is that Tom Clancy's The Division follows in the footsteps of Destiny, in the sense that as time goes on and they do add more content, I mean, we know it. We've got the roadmap for the rest of this year. They've got a ton of plans, but as it stands right now, it's just feeling a little bare bones, a little skeletal. And some people will say to me, "Oh, Forrest, you played it so quickly." And again, just to reiterate, I do this often, but we need to drive some points home, and this is a point that we need to drive home. Yes, I got to this point after a couple of weeks, but you're going to get to this point eventually as well, depending on how quickly you play. Maybe it'll take a month or 2 months. But the fact of the matter is, there's just not too much here, and we get to that point where we're just grinding that gear over and over again, and that would be okay in some games, but I'm just not terribly blown away. It's just there's not a lot of diversity in this game, and I think that's what really pushes me away from it and has me going to other games. And we can look to a game that I've been playing recently as well, which is Black Desert Online. I have now gotten into the vicinity of 200 hours with that game, and I am still not bored. There's still so much for me to do, such variety in terms of what you can do in the world. It's a much bigger world, and it's probably not fair to directly compare Division to Black Desert Online. They are different games. They're trying to do different things, but in terms of a game that has content and is able to hold my attention for longer, Black Desert is coming out on top right now. But maybe that game gets an unfair advantage because it was already released in the East and we're getting content quicker than we would otherwise. Either way, I'm just here to sort of share with you my impressions and opinions. And when it comes to the Division, especially when it comes to this update 1.1 and the PvE side of things, I'm really not terribly impressed with the incursions. 15 waves of enemies. We've got some shock bots, and we've got a very basic mechanic of shutdown turrets and drop-off bomb. I hope they step it up to the plate when it comes to future updates and the PvE thing. And even PvP, I mean, it's kind of a mess. I feel like almost every time I've stepped in PvP, we've encountered... I've seen a lot of hackers recently. I don't know about you guys, but that's just been my... anecdotal evidence, and I've heard some people talk about it as well. And you might say, well, maybe they're just better than you. No, these are things that are quite clearly maybe not what they should be. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video talking about the most recent update for Tom Clancy's Division. I think it is a good game, and if you're out there and you're enjoying it and you continue to play it, more power to you. But for me, at this point, there's not enough to do, not enough variety, and I'm not going to sit here and continue to grind crafting materials for the next couple of months to get slightly better versions of the gear that I have now, because there's not much to do with that gear. It really doesn't matter. I don't really care. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure as always to leave your comments and thoughts in the video description. No, you can't put anything in the description. That's me. In the comment section below. And until next time, I'll see you later.